What a final series so far, and what a game three. The Aces take a commanding 3-0 lead in the WNBA finals. How did they get there, and how do we see the rest of this series panning out? Plus, does a third Aces championship mean that they have cemented the dynasty? We will preview game 4 and, of course, catch you up on everything in the world of the WNBA CBA and Napheesa Collier's conversation that she was supposed to have with WNBA Commissioner Cathy Engelbert. Let's get into all of it. It is a busy time. It is a crazy time. It is a fun time in this league. She is Ice Young. That is Cassandra Negley. I am Caroline Fenton. Welcome in to Hoops 360. What a game 3 we got in Phoenix. I mean, the Aces had a 17-point lead, and then the Mercury did what they have been doing so far in the postseason. Doesn't matter if it's a double-digit deficit at halftime, the Phoenix Mercury will find a way, and they almost did last night until that pesky little A'ja Wilson got into the way. She hit the jumper to go up 90-88 with 0.3 seconds left on the clock. Aces take a 3-0 lead in the series, and it felt like game 1 was kind of a game of the supplementary scorers for the Aces. It was bench scoring between Jewel Lloyd and Dana Evans. You know, we had some contributions from Jackie Young. It's wild that a 21-point, 10-rebound day feels like a quiet day for A'ja Wilson, but it kind of felt like that in game 1. And then game 2, it was a battle of the superstars. It was A'ja Wilson and Jackie Young that largely carried the Aces to game 2. But Cass, if we're going to call it, supplementary scoring won the Aces game 1. The superstars won the Aces game 2. You were in Phoenix. You are in Phoenix. You had your boots on the ground. How would you say the Aces won game 3?
Through their stars, through some key bench play. I mean, A'ja Wilson is the most impressive thing to me, and I think this has been talked about before, but should definitely be brought up again. Her elevation on her shots is what really does it. Like the height she got on that jumper to hit over DeWanna Bonner and Alyssa Thomas was incredible. And there's this amazing photo with 2.2 seconds left as she has the ball in her hands for 22. Like, I saw somewhere, and it was an interesting thought, like, you can't really apply this, but if it were still a best of 5, that would have been like the series winner. And that's absolutely incredible. As for how they've won, though, I think it was interesting to go back to game 2 and Jackie Young and A'ja Wilson really have that incredible game. Becky Hammon had said in game 1 that Jackie Young actually asked out of the game, which doesn't happen. She said she was just fatigued, didn't have her legs. She told us she was throwing darts. And so that practice day in between 1 and 2, Jackie Young was just in street clothes at practice, and her teammates were kind of joking around with her a little bit. But when Becky asked her, you know, can you go tomorrow? Like, are you ready? Jackie goes, I'm fine, I got it. And she puts on that performance. And so the Aces are coming off a really, really hard best of 5 series that went the length with Indiana. They did a full 3 games against Seattle. I think they just kind of needed that little bit of a breath. And now we're seeing Jackie Young and A'ja Wilson and Chelsea Gray, who's not going to pile in the points, fuel the team as they've always fueled the team.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, isn't it like watching game 3? I'm screaming at the TV. And in the third quarter, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking like, no, it's a 12-point deficit. It's 15 minutes left in the game. Asia's got 23 and 10. And I'm like, it's 15 minutes left. And I'm thinking that they have this game. I didn't necessarily see the push that Phoenix made. To me, that was maybe the most impressive part of the game, aside from the game winner. Phoenix came out of nowhere. I mean, Kahleah Copper, quiet through 3 quarters. Didn't hear her name. And you could feel that for Phoenix. You could feel her absence. And then for her to run off 11 straight, again, screaming at my TV. My heart goes out to Satou Sabally. We have to, discuss that injury, because for a player that was playing, to me, at the height of her career right now, knowing what Satou has gone through in her career, being on a team in which they were below 500, nobody cared what they were doing this time of year. For her to be a key point, a piece in the big 3, it was hard to see her go down. But this is why we also love sports, and that as soon as she went back in the locker room, that's when Copper was like, I need to step up for my team. And you could see the difference. You guys asked me, I think 2 pods ago, what it was going to take for Phoenix to have a chance to win. And my answer was everything. It's going to take everything, all players to play on the same accord. I truly believe the reason they didn't win that game is because all of their players weren't able to click entirely throughout the game. You need every weapon in order to beat the Aces. And they just fell short. I felt like that was the one they needed to get. I'm not sure you're going to get Luana Bonner getting 25 points again. I mean, we saw vintage DB in game 3. The lull you to sleep, the crossover, the and ones. Beautiful to see her at this point in her career play to this level and look like the veteran that she is. But to me, that was the missed opportunity. When you get Satou having plus 20, DB plus 20, Copper coming to life late, like they had enough, but I'm not sure you're going to duplicate those results again to move forward. Cass said it all about A'ja. I'm not sure what more we can say about her other than I'm just so grateful. We're getting to witness greatness in real time. And the leadership component that comes with, she went a bit quiet herself late in the fourth quarter, didn't necessarily hit as many shots, was on 32 points for 6 minutes. But when it counted, you can go to her and she delivers. I don't know. I feel like I lost my voice, honestly, and had to recover because I was screaming at my TV.
And I think you just pointed out maybe the most frustrating aspect for the Mercury. You have Copper and DeWanna Bonner doing what veterans do in the fourth quarter when your star in Satou Sabally goes down. Scary scene. Nate Tibbetts said it was a head or a face injury. As of the time that we're recording this podcast, no update quite yet on Satou Sabally, but very scary scene, and we wish her absolutely nothing but the best. But that's why you bring in players like DeWanna Bonner to be clutch and come up with clutch shots like that late in the game. I mean, Copper and DeWanna Bonner combined for 20 of the Mercury's 29 points in the fourth quarter. You've got 2 reliable veterans stepping up in clutch time, and you are, for the most part, stifling the MVP A'ja Wilson in the fourth quarter. Like, all of these pieces, it felt like, all of the boxes that the Mercury needed to check late in that game, they were checking them. But Cass, at the end of the day, one team has A'ja Wilson and one team doesn't. And maybe that's oversimplifying things, but that's what it came down to. That even when A'ja Wilson was kind of quiet in the fourth quarter, she found a way to step up when it mattered most, and that made all the difference.
Yeah, I think for the Mercury also, though, Alyssa Thomas did not. Well, first of all, Nate Tibbetts did not make it quiet that they don't care about moral victories. He said, we wanted this one. We needed this one. As I said, like they needed this one. Their backs are now literally against the wall. And I'll be interested to see how they handle that, because what Alyssa Thomas said was shame on us for not coming out and playing the way we played in the fourth quarter the entire game. And I think that's kind of been a little bit of the trend with the Mercury, right? They're known as this fourth quarter team. And sure, that's great and all, but you can't do that against a very, very experienced Aces squad. And Ice has also mentioned coaching in this. Becky Hammon has called timeouts at very key times, stopped runs, and gotten the Aces back into the game. The thing about the Mercury last night, like, it became a good game at the end, but I think throughout it was always just like, the Mercury can't quite make the play to take a lead. They'd tie the game and then something would happen and they kind of just would fall apart. And I think in terms of the Satou of it all, incredibly heartbreaking for her. Just as a note, the day before, I think we had spoken with her and she was asked about officiating, I think it was, and she kind of just talked about the unfortunate thing about injuries. And she said she had been lucky this year compared to years past that she wasn't injured. So to see her go down on just an incredibly unfortunate accidental play and to see her be almost carried off the court in a very jarring way is absolutely heartbreaking, especially as well thinking how many times we've now seen this in each round to a star player.
Yeah, it's something you can't control. We know that it comes with the game and a completely accidental. This maybe could look different than the Napheesa Collier injury that she experienced in the Alyssa Thomas play, right? Accidental, but it was still like a physical basketball play. This was just bodies flying and an awkward fall. So certainly hope Satou is okay, whether she returns to the finals or not. We care about athletes as people as well. And so certainly hope that her injury is not serious. You go back to coaching cast, and I want to highlight what I also thought was very smart upon Becky Hammon was to insert Megan Gustafson into the game in the last 2 to 3 minutes of the game. I'm not sorry to say this, but Kirsten Bell looked lost. She looked like this was her first time playing in the finals, and she wasn't prepared for the moment, to me, down the stretch the last few minutes. And I felt like defensively, the Mercury started to take advantage of Bell being on the floor, packing a little bit more, doubling some of the main players, Jackie Young, Chelsea Gray, getting on the boards with A'ja Wilson. And I felt like there needed to be a change and insert Megan Gustafson, who didn't have the greatest numbers, but was solid down the stretch to help with rebounding, help to be in the position she needed to, and obviously just has more size than a Kirsten Bell. So go back to coaching. Yes, the timeouts make sense. Yes, the after timeout execution. Yes, getting A'ja Wilson the ball on the left elbow with space was important. But also I think adding Megan Gustafson in there when Dana Evans had fouled out, that hurt as well. I didn't think that was going to happen. I'm watching these fouls from Dana Evans, and she's trying to guard Alyssa Thomas like her life depends on it, and is just accidentally picking up fouls left and right. But I thought that was a good push that they needed to make in using their bench. We're going to talk about this team becoming a dynasty. And to me, the way in which Becky Hammon develops players is the reason that they have become a dynasty.
One thing about the Megan Gustafson thing that's interesting to throw out, Nate was asked, because at game one, he said he probably should have called a timeout there late in that close game. So he was asked, did you feel that about this one? And he said, you always think about it, but no, because he didn't want to give the Aces a chance to take Megan Gustafson out and put Kiah Stokes in, which is another thing that Becky likes to do in these like little 20-second spurts when she needs Kiah Stokes.
And I think that just kind of shows how much of a chess match it is going up against Becky Hammon, going up against this roster, going up against this bench that can be incredibly deep. Talked about where the advantages may lie in these teams. And Becky Hammon is such an overwhelming advantage in almost every single game that the Aces play at that coaching position. So, of course, TBD. On Satou Sabally, for her sake, for the Mercury's sake, I hope that we will get to see her in Game 4. So far, we don't know what that will look like. But you brought up dynasty. I mean, if the Aces win 3 championships in 4 years, it doesn't get much more dynastic than that. What would be more surprising to you? I'll start with you. Would it be more surprising that the Aces sweep and win it in 4, or that this series goes to 5+?
More surprising to me would be the sweep. I think to me would be the sweep. Hear me out. If I'm, okay, Satou Sabally, right? If she's healthy, the game obviously looks a bit different. But if she's not healthy, you're in Phoenix for Game 4 without the big 3, without size, without 20 points. Yeah, the sweep is probably going to happen. But something in my spirit is saying that Phoenix can get one. Like, there are players that have been in these moments. And to be quite honest, it's better for the league. I believe now it's better for the league if Phoenix wins a game. I don't love the narrative. I don't love the narrative that in the first time we do a best of 7 series, it's a sweep. I don't love that. I love the fact that we have someone who's dominating and showing how good they can be. But to me, in terms of the game and getting general fans to continue to buy in, you don't necessarily just want 4 games. You want as much basketball as you can, especially if it's good basketball. So I think that would surprise me. Cass, what you think? I don't know. What you think?
I thought Phoenix could take Game 3, but I haven't really seen much from Phoenix that gives me any confidence they can actually get over this hump. And I think to the point you made about Satou, like, if Satou is not playing, and I know she's had some rough shooting games, but like, she can space the floor and give you that 3-point shot. And I think that's what hurt in their final possession there. Like, they didn't have those options. I kind of think the Aces are just going to wrap it up and be done with this. But I'll give you a reason why they won't. Because Phoenix has always played very well with their backs against the wall, like truly against the wall. And that's why they're a good fourth quarter team. So maybe they actually pull it out and bring this back to Las Vegas. I think like in the moment, it's easy to say because there's a sweep, it makes it look bad. Like the narrative is bad, I think you said. Yeah. Hopefully, like that doesn't ratchet up too much. I think it's just an unfortunate first series.
Yeah, it's just
you're right though. People will talk about it.
That's what people are texting me. Like I'm getting texts like, this is a bust, you know? And these are my friends that support the league that come to me when they really want to give their honest answers. You know, someone said like, hey, you know, obviously maybe the Lynx would have been a better matchup. And maybe they would have been, but things happen. People get hurt. You know, Phoenix, I believe, overpowered them and came into this series with a ton of momentum. And the Aces have just been better in all the areas. I also will say, if we're talking about game 4 and strategy moving forward, to me, that second to last shot that Alyssa Thomas took, Cass, when the game was tied and they could have had the chance to go and take the lead, that shot needed to be taken by Copper. No disrespect to Alyssa Thomas, but at that point, you ride the hot hand in the fourth quarter. I don't care who you put in front of Kahleah Copper. She can beat them with her first step and company. And I just think they missed an opportunity to get a more high percentage layup from someone that has more of a package or more of a high percentage shot from someone that has a package than Alyssa Thomas. That has been a critique of mine from Nate Tibbetts, is that down the stretch for Phoenix, shot selection isn't always great. And sometimes it's the shot that's taken. Other times it's the person who takes the shot. And I just felt like, yeah, Satou was in the game. To me, that should have been Satou's shot. But at that point, fourth quarter, you got to give that to Kahleah Copper. And so if they want to get one game and not get swept out of here in their first finals with this group, I believe you got to go to Copper and continue to feed her down the stretch and make sure the right people are taking the right shots. The beauty about Alyssa Thomas's game is even when she plays bad, she's still so productive. She's still so helpful. If she's not turning the ball over more than 4 times in the game, she's still getting you rebounds. She's still setting screens. She's still setting the tone and the pace. So I believe even when she has a bad game, the other pieces can help and make up for it because she's just not playing terribly. She does too much production on the court for them. But I just thought Copper should have taken that shot. It was the first note that I wrote down in my notes was like, yeah, I just don't think AT should have been in that position. I think Ka should have taken that.
And it is
I didn't
crazy
love it
that
either.
we can say that Alyssa Thomas had a quote unquote like bad game and she was 1 assist shy of a triple double. I feel like that's just like what we've come to expect from Alyssa Thomas, and I think goes to show how much the Mercury rely on that production from Alyssa Thomas. To your point though about like the competitiveness of this series, I don't want to play revisionist history about this Phoenix team. Because, okay, would this series be more competitive if it was the Lynx and a healthy Napheesa Collier? Like, maybe. And the storylines would be galore. But let's not forget who beat the Lynx to get to the finals. And I understand that the Lynx didn't have Fee in that game 4. I totally understand that. But even with a healthy Fee, that was a very close and very closely contested series. Like, it's not like, it was, the Lynx were just completely decimated with injury. Like Mercury earned their path to the final. So and the Aces looked like they were the ones kind of limping into this series. They were the ones that went to overtime in game 5 with a Fever team that like maybe I could have played for because they had so many injuries and I am not athletic. So like, I do not want to play revisionist history about where both of these teams were coming into the series. Now we did say all of us took the Aces to win the series. But I think I took 7. I think you guys both took 6. Like, we did not expect this to be as dominant. Now, it's not over. It still can go to 6. I'm not betting on 6. And I'm certainly not betting on 7. I think 5 even feels like it could be a far cry. I am with you, Cass. I picked Phoenix to win game 3.
Yeah.
Because I thought the momentum of going back home can be a hell of a drug. Maybe the Aces, could have played with their food a little bit, feeling like they were so much the better team, maybe took their foot off the gas just a little bit in game 3. But this win just goes to show you like that championship experience and that championship mindset is so incredibly key. But guys, I'll ask you, because you were in Vegas, you're in Phoenix. How much do you think the environments played a role into these 3 games?
I mean, I don't think any more than maybe usual.
Yeah.
I actually had someone tell me who hasn't spent a lot of time in Vegas. I've spent a lot of time over the past 4 years in Las Vegas. Like every time I get in an Uber, they're like, "Oh, are you visiting? How often do you come?" And I'm like, "I'm here every single freaking September." But I had someone say like they didn't think the crowd was all that into it, or maybe as lit as it has been before. And I could see that side. And I think part of that is like, you just get used to constantly winning. The Phoenix crowd was good, not a full sellout, but they really didn't get into it until after Satou's injury, when the Mercury finally showed some fire. So I don't think it's that big of a thing. What I will go all the way back to say, though, is what if we had a best of 7 for Aces and Fever?
Oh,
that would have been fun.
Oh, yes.
Ooh.
From your lips to the basketball god's ears. We need
What if we had a
7
7-game series last year in the finals?
everywhere. Oh, man.
Exactly.
What? We'd still be talking about that to this day. But that's what it is, right? Like, that's the beauty of a series, is that you got to find out multiple ways to beat a team. And so that's what brings you in. That's where the scheme comes in, right? Like the storylines, the bodies, the health. So I agree with you. And because of all the storylines that the Indiana Fever had, it was getting dicey. You know, you felt like the Aces, like you said, escaped that series and then come into the finals and are now just their most confident selves. To me, it just looks like the most experienced team. They look like they've been here 3 out of the past 4 years. They look like they're not new to the moment. Like all but one player on that roster to me looks like they're not new to the moment.
And I think that's like such a huge,
you know who you are,
part of it. Not to be, you know, as Caroline said, like not to be a revisionist history here, but you go back to the end of game 1 when Alyssa Thomas misses those free throws. And I actually think like, what a great foul by Jackie Young. I would have to go back and watch the film. I don't think it was like necessarily purposeful. She was just trying to defend. But Alyssa Thomas is not, you know, an exquisite free throw shooter. And so to put her at the line instead of letting her get an easy basket, like, may have changed the entire tenor of this series, because if Phoenix wins game 1, everything else looks really, really different. And you kind of heard from Dawana Bonner a little bit. She was asked, like, do you feel like you let a winnable game go to go all the way back to where we started here? And she said, like, yeah, like throwing away game 2, because that was trash. Those are my words, not hers. Game 1 and game 3 were like highly winnable for the Mercury. They had opportunities and they had chances. But now they're down 0-3 and like no moral victories. You're kind of between a rock and a hard spot.
Yeah. You got nothing to lose. That's why I think they might win the next game. You got nothing to lose. They're going to come out there, bombs away, attacking, have a decent game plan. You know, hopefully Nate Tibbetts has another sleeve up his trick that he can use to throw them off defensively. I even thought too in those spurts, like Phoenix has it. They have enough to defend the Aces and to make it tough. Like during that last 3-minute stretch, you felt like, yeah, there weren't necessarily easy answers. They were making sure that they covered all the areas that needed to be. But you got to put that together for 40 minutes. You got to put that together for 40 minutes. You got to do it on both sides of the basketball. And then you need, again, all of your weapons, even with or without Satou Sabally. I'm telling you, I actually think they might have a chance because they're just going to come out there and have nothing to lose. And that's one of the most dangerous teams to play against.
Have a chance in game 4 or have a chance to come back and win this series.
Oh,
because those are
Caroline. What you
different
Caroline?
Stories. I just wanted to make sure we're on the same page here.
To Ice's point, this came up last night that like in Becky Hammon's tenure, the Aces had never won a game 3, right? They'd gone up 2-0. They never won a game 3. They won it last night.
Yesterday.
But here's the thing that I was thinking about last night, because I included that in a story about like the Aces going on these side quests. Like Phoenix can't even compete. Aces are going on side quests. Game 4 is now the game 3 because, to Ice's point, like the other team is desperate, just can do, you know, has nothing to lose. Like now game 4 is the most important thing.
Yeah. And they're still at home.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I that's a fair point to bring up because I kept hearing over and over again, you know, after the Aces took game 2 that, you know, no team in the WNBA finals has been able to come back from a 2-0 deficit. Like, yes, that's true, but also this is a completely different series. Like coming back from a 2-0 deficit is way different in a 5-game series versus a 7-game series. So I think that's important to point out, Cass. The way that we, you know, look at the history of the finals or the way that we might look at this series, we kind of have to throw everything that we think we might know out the window because it's a completely different story. But let's just say, you know, I think we all feel very confident. We'll give our official picks later on in the show. We feel confident in the Aces to win their third championship in 4 years. Whether it's 4 games, 5 games, let's go crazy, 6 games. The Aces look like the better team. The Aces look like the team that has been there before because they have. I think, right now, just being in 3 finals in 4 years is a dynasty. If they win 3 finals in 4 years, Cass, what does that mean for this dynasty? Where would you put this team, this dynasty, in the history of the W, in the grand scheme of sports as a whole? How will we define this run by the Aces that is still ongoing?
Well, I think at its most basic, definitely a dynasty, right? Like, I think not to be a player about this, but in the moment, covering kind of the day to day, like, I haven't sat down and thought where I would rank them or, how I would compare them. But what I will do in the postseason is look at like the Houston Comets teams. When the Aces won in 2023, I had asked Asia about if she had watched that film, if she knew a lot about the Houston Comets. And she said, obviously everyone knows about the Houston Comets, but she said she hadn't really watched that film. But she does tap into Cheryl Swoops, who was on that team, and, how to get this done. You talk about the Minnesota Lynx winning 4 and 7, winning every other year. You talk about the Detroit Shock, who won a few like right in a row. That gets overlooked a lot. Those are the WNBA teams that I'm comparing them against. And I think they could be really near the top because the interesting thing to me, I don't know how you feel about it, Ice, but this one looks so different from the rest. Like, yes, they still have 3 of their key players and their head coach. They have 2 new assistants who had to come on board who didn't have WNBA experience. They had to fill these other holes. They brought in a player midway through this season. Becky Hammon has not been quiet about how this is her most challenging season. And it's not the X's and O's. It's the leadership, the mental part, the, maybe like not inspiring part, because that's not the right word, but just getting everything to click and being, she told them, don't jump off the ship. Like, we're going to figure it out. And clearly they have, Ice.
Yeah, it's impressive. It's impressive from every standpoint, especially when you see a team that has so much talent, several number 1 draft picks on the roster, be a 500 team in a league early where it's like, hey, come on, that you're the hunted. Like, I don't care who won the championship last year, playing the Aces that they are the hunted. And so for them to win back-to-back championships in 22 and 23, to try and do it last year with that same core group and get to the finals and be beat by a team that literally constructed a roster just to beat you, and then to come back and switch out a key piece in Kelsey Plum, bring in a Joel Lloyd, have Joel Lloyd, one of the best scorers we've had in this league, coming off the bench in order for your team to be successful. The growth in a player like Dana Evans, who has been around and seen a championship run, but wasn't a part of the DNA. She is a part of this DNA. And then to still have a Chelsea Gray and a Jackie Young and A'ja Wilson that have elevated their games year after year. Like, to me, the dynasty is solidified in the fact that you've had this group of players, this nucleus, who haven't just won the same way each year, like Cass said. Each time it has looked different, but also they have elevated their games. A playoff career high for A'ja Wilson in the last game, 34 points. So I think that they are a dynasty. To me, I think actually about Kelsey Plum. Like, I wonder, being in Kelsey Plum's shoes right now, was it worth it? Was it worth it? Could you be winning another championship with a group? Or are you trying to build your own? And obviously, the Sparks have some work to do with how they finish this season, but and you've tasted that greatness. And to see that they were able to make one move and get back to greatness, I believe shows you what a dynasty looks like. We talk about dynasties in the comments, they won 4 in a row. So it was just like, you're dominating everybody. Well, nobody even close. It's like A'ja Wilson, best player in the world, and nobody's even close right now. I would compare them to the run that the Lynx had because you experienced losing and then you came right back and were able to win. And again, you did it with the core that also is showing growth. I hope we don't get tired of seeing greatness. To me also, Becky Hammon has given the blueprint that studying in the NBA and studying under a great can give you the formula for success. And I think that is really cool to see. Like, as a woman in sports, someone that was in a male dominated space that picked up, that learned, that affected that space so well under Greg Popovich and the Spurs. And then to bring this over and have this type of immediate success and longevity. we've given our 4th season and we're talking about a dynasty. You know, that's bulletproof.
I think it just goes to show too that the level of investment pays off. When you cough up the money that it takes to get a coach of the caliber of Becky Hammon's, that pays off. When you invest into your franchise, into coaches, into facilities, I think that's a really big statement that we can look at through a microscope with the Aces, but also, you know, apply that to the league as a whole. You invest in your coaches, you invest in your team, and if you invest in your league, you get positive things out of that. It does not take a rocket scientist to figure out that investment can equal positive results. I also think we can look at this Aces season and not just give credit to the dynasty that they are currently in, not just give credit to the fact that they were out on the outside looking in last season and found their way back to it, but I also think it's a testament to the midpoint in their season. It wasn't that long ago that we heard Becky Hammon speaking at the podium, calling out her players for not giving 100% effort. It was not that long ago that we were on this podcast talking about how this Aces team is not the Aces of 22 and 23. This Aces team does not look the same. This Aces team is beatable. This Aces team has flaws, so on and so forth. That was a month and a half ago. Now we are talking about the Aces potentially winning their 3rd championship in 4 years. Credit to the leadership on that team to be able to turn a lackluster looking team into a dominant one. I could talk for hours about so much credit that I give to this team, this construct, and the way that they've built this franchise.
I also just want to shout out like front office leadership. Nikki Vargas, who runs that organization, keeping those pieces together, keeping that roster what it is, bringing in the new pieces, all of that. We credit so much to Becky Hammon, and obviously she does a ton, but your front office also has to be in line. They also have to want you to win a championship and you to succeed. And certainly all the things are right now in Vegas. It's a hot place to be. No pun intended.
Literally, it is. I think Cass can probably...
I love making jokes that Cass barely laughs at. It's my goal.
Hot. Okay, so we've got game 4 on Friday, 8 o'clock Eastern time tip. Let's move on to a larger story in the league. This battle between Cathy Engelbert, the league, Napheesa Collier, and the players as a whole. So let's just kind of lay out the timeline of this. Of course, a couple of weeks ago, Napheesa Collier, which I was like a week and a half ago. That feels like 17,000 years ago. I'm a different woman today than I was then.
Same.
Cass has lived a million lives. Cass has been in 45 different places since this happened on September 30th.
We need to send Cass a care
October
package.
9th. Yeah.
Or the Aces can just knock this thing out in 4 games and that will be your care
Let Cass
package.
go home. Let Cass take a bubble bath and see her dog and her husband.
I just want to see the foliage. Yeah, and my dog.
Poor Cass has been in the desert.
And my husband. Sorry, Jack.
Him too. He's like included, I guess. Sorry, Jack. But okay, so September 30th. Napheesa Collier had her exit interview. She absolutely went scorched earth on Cathy Engelbert in the league. If you want to hear a deep dive into that, you can listen to our previous podcast where we did a full breakdown on what Napheesa Collier had to say. You can find that on your preferred podcast platform and the Yahoo Sports YouTube page. So then Cathy Engelbert in the league put out a written statement, and then Cathy Engelbert had a press conference where she addressed some of the things that Napheesa Collier had to say in her statement. And then just a couple of days after that, Napheesa Collier canceled the meeting that she had in place with Cathy Engelbert. She said that the things that she heard Cathy Engelbert say in her press conference, quote, pretty much pushed the relationship beyond repair. Honestly, in Napheesa Collier's statement, it sounded like that relationship was already beyond repair, and it was only made worse. Now, we heard from NBA Commissioner Adam Silver earlier this week. He addressed the situation and said, quote, the WNBA is experiencing some growth pains. At the same time, Cathy Engelbert has presided over 6 years of some of the strongest growth we've not only seen in the W, but any sports league in history. But it's become too personal, and we're going to have to work through those issues. Yeah, I would say you should probably work through some of those issues, Adam. I see you're smiling. Just give me an overall reaction to everything that we've seen at the league level over the last week and some change.
Yeah, I mean, it's crunch time. The deadline for the CBA is October 31st. Like, it is crunch time. These things that are happening, the days that you just outlined, every day matters right now in terms of negotiations and what is happening for the future of this league that is growing and trending in the right direction. Simply put, Cathy did not have a good press conference. You have a PR team and people to prepare you. I do media training with athletes, coaches, teams, professionals. She needed more media training in that moment. As soon as the question was directly asked about Caitlin Clark and her and what she deserves, and it felt like she took it personal. Back to Adam Silver's comments, right? Like, it's gotten too personal now. And to me, that is why you can't go back. It had been too personal when Napheesa Collier gave her exit interview. But then to say that, you didn't say those things, and like, are you just now calling Napheesa Collier a liar out loud at a press conference in front of all of us? Because that's how I saw it. So that's what I said. She can't go up there and say she didn't say those things. Like, that can't be the strategy, because then you're going to be calling one of the faces of the league a liar. And then if you really thought that you could continue to do this job that you've been doing for 6 years, you should think it again. To me now, it was over before. I don't see how you come back from this. I agree with Adam. It's gotten too personal. This is a business. You are a businesswoman in a position in which you decide how the league grows, where it grows, and the faces that grow the league. And she has failed. And you failed. And then you got up in the press conference and called a player a liar. That gave some very specific examples of conversations that she has had with you in private to hopefully bring about change. See, my thought was that Cathy needed to go into the press conference and be about bringing change. Come with some solutions. Hey, this is what we're doing in CBA right now. What can you say legally that can give people maybe something else to focus on or bring about solution? Because otherwise, it's just going to become more about the discourse. And I think that's all we walked away thinking. Like, as a media person, I walked away thinking, man, this is over. Like, I don't think Cathy will be a part of the league this year. She can't be, because this relationship is too tarnished. And if you're doing this in public to Napheesa Collier, I wonder what's happening in private to some other athletes that have come with you with requests or concerns that aren't a UConn graduate, that aren't the main player in the league, that haven't been named a defensive player of the year. Like, you don't serve just the 1 or 2 or the top 10. You serve all 133, 40, almost now getting ready to become 50 women with 2 expansion teams. I think that's the other thing that I'm thinking about is if I'm an expansion team and I'm getting my pieces in play, how can I trust that things are being done the right way and that the players we're going to bring in are going to be heard about between this conversation and this situation that's happening out loud? I just think Cathy missed the ball on her media training, on her press conference. I think she took it personal and she responded in a personal way, and that's how it came across. I think good on Fee for not going and having the conversations. I don't talk to many people who call me a liar. I don't see why we would force Fee to do that. And lastly, like, as much as Adam Silver's comments may be true, growing pains can look a ton of different ways.
Don't get me started with the term growing pains.
Yeah. Growing pains shouldn't look like your commissioner calling one of your best players a liar. That's not a growing pain. That's an issue.
Some of these things, like the players want more money because the league is growing and they have a more lucrative television deal. They want their fair share of that. That, I think, you can probably chalk up to a growing pain. We're learning, we're growing, everybody wants their due. To say that what is now happening, the lack of trust that the players have in Cathy Engelbert, the fact that when Napheesa Collier said, we feel like we are playing and representing a shield that doesn't value us, that's not growing pains. That is a fundamental issue in your leadership, and it starts at the top.
So it's a systemic issue. That is a
systemic issue in this league, and it goes far beyond just the growth of the league. The growth of the league is part of it. Do not get me wrong, that is part of it. But I felt like Adam Silver just chalking it up to growing pains diluted what is actually fundamentally wrong in this league. But Cass, I want to know your thoughts on it, because I know, there's a lot of he said, she said that's happening in some of these statements. There is only so much actual legitimate fact that we do know about the conversations that happen behind closed doors. So from your perspective, what are some of your kind of biggest takeaways here?
Well, going into that press conference was easily the most stressful room that I think any of us have ever been in the WNBA. Like, you could feel the anxiety. It's a small room in the Aces arena. You had ESPN commentators in there, which just does not happen. I mean, you just felt it the 10 minutes before Cathy came out. And I think it's interesting, the feelings inside the room versus outside the room. Cathy was not perfect by any means. And certainly she's never been great at these. But I will say her opening statement was very, very short. Usually she loves to recap press releases. She did not do that. I think she was more direct than she has been in the past. That's not saying maybe it's at the level where everyone wants her to be, but certainly compared to in the past, she gave more direct answers. She did take accountability, saying that she needs to repair the relationships. Internally, a lot of us were like, that went okay. Like that went okay. I think in terms of the he said, she said, and this tension, it is taking over all of the conversation about CBA, which I think is really interesting. I don't know that this really answers your question, but one thing that Satou said this week was that the league, I was talking with her about just coming from maybe not a lot of money and now having athlete privilege, and having money for the first time. That's not to say she's a multimillionaire like an NBA player, but she has money. And we were talking about rookies who make, about $68,000 a year. She said that the league, in their proposal, offered a minimum of $300,000, which is a pretty large jump. And there's also previous reporting by ESPN that a max salary would be around $1 million. This is the first time we've heard numbers, which I think is interesting. And I also just want to say, in talking to other players about CBA negotiations, for one, people who are in the finals are maybe not as tuned in, understandably. They're kind of waiting for their season to be over, which complicates all of this all of the time because this is an annual thing with the CBA. But then also there are tweener players like Dana Evans, like Kalani Brown, who I spoke with, who in the past have been squeezed out of the CBA. So I think I say all of this to say that Fee speaking and what she said is definitely important and probably speaks to what a lot of people are feeling in the W. But there's also players underneath them and between a player like Fee and a player like Caitlin Clark who maybe have other priorities that I think are getting lost in this kind of battle between the sides. And I find that really interesting from just kind of a journalistic perspective.
That's fascinating.
It is.
I think from the outside, we've looked at it like we've never seen a league more united maybe than we saw in response to Napheesa Collier's statements. But
players
it is
united. Players united.
Players.
Not the league that's united,
Not
right?
the league.
But yeah, players that
Thank
united.
you.
Yeah.
Right. Like players, former players, current players on different teams. There are so many of them have spoken out and said, yep, thank you, Fee. Like we support Fee. But I think it is important to point out that maybe there is at least a silent minority, silent majority, whatever you want to call it. And those voices are important as well.
And I think both can be true, right? We've heard a lot of players say, I spot no lies or yes, Fee, but that doesn't mean that they stand by every single thing that she said. And on top of that, you can stand by Fee while also maybe having different views on how you should go about a CBA negotiation. Like that's really the thing I keep thinking about is Fee lying? Is Cathy lying? What's going on here? It's what is this clouding over as we talk about what's going to happen next and what really needs to happen in terms of coming to an agreement on a CBA. Like the relationships are important. I'm not denying that. But I think it's interesting how it has taken over the rest of this conversation.
Yeah. And think about the other side, right, of being an owner, right? The owners are sitting down with Cathy. You're talking about the CBA and what needs to happen. The players come to the table and say what they want. It is a much harder conversation right now if players feel like a commissioner is not valid in what they're saying, is not supporting conversations that happen. Maybe flat out said that a player lied and they did not say these things. It is a much harder conversation that is now happening than it was 2 weeks ago, right? That we didn't know about. I would argue that even between Fee's statement and then today, that conversation was harder after Cathy decided to have her press conference and the results that came from that. Like, to me, I thought she would have gone into that more solution based in terms of, hey, this is what we're working on. This is what we're putting forward. And I think you're right, Cass. Like, even if she did, what came out of that was the cloud of discourse, and that we can't necessarily find a way forward. And we want the league to find a way forward. You know, you're experiencing all this growth. I mean, we talked about the Caitlin Clark effect on this pod. It's now been 2 years post the Caitlin Clark effect, right? The game 1 of the WNBA finals was the most watched, right? Had the most viewers without that signature name. So we know that the growth, to me, is sustainable. We know that it's happening. But for the owners, my question is almost, what needs to happen in terms of leadership to bridge the gap with players? We know that this person in this situation right now does not have a great relationship with players, but what can you do to make sure that that exists? That is the next question that lands, because I do not believe that the W players are going into these negotiations smiling and saying good morning and talking to Cathy. I believe that there is attitude and anger and a pissed offedness about them that is making these negotiations way harder. And again, we've only got till October 31st to hopefully figure it out. I'll lastly say, I love the numbers that you gave, Cass, but it's so interesting because we don't quite know how much the league is making. We don't quite know the difference, right? 1 million could be short. I read an article the other day from the New York Times that had estimated that players like Alyssa Thomas and A'ja Wilson should be making 4 million by their calculations of the basketball income that is being brought into this league. So those numbers sound great because honestly, the bar right now is set low. You know, it's like an ex-boyfriend that didn't care to call you every day, and now you date somebody and they just text you every day. Like, hey, I'm happy I'm getting a text because I was never getting called before. Like, no, the bar is low, dude. We need to raise the bar altogether. So those numbers sound good to me right now. It sounds like a salary in which someone can play for 4 to 5 months and live the rest of the year off of. It eliminates the fact that some of these players will have to go overseas and play. That is still a major concern right now in the W, is how many players go overseas and are making the majority of their money and then coming back. Players that experience injury overseas and then can't play in this league that we care about. And then we obviously have Unrivaled. That is presenting a new and different opportunity for players to have something to do in the offseason and bring in money and build their sponsorships and build their brand. There's too much going in it right now. I feel like the conversation is tough because of the press conference that Cathy had. And I'm just wondering what the owners are trying to do to bridge that gap between the players. To me, that's the question that needs to be answered right now.
One thing I will also throw out into this conversation, Cathy's comment about Fee aside in that press conference, the W has a history and seem to be right now not wanting to be negative towards their players, right? Or call out their players. And it seems to be why there aren't a lot of numbers coming out or, you know, negativity towards the players. They have never wanted to do that. They have never bought into that. And to your point about like, you know, Cathy coming to the presser with like some solutions or talking about the CBA, it seems like her and the WNBA and NBA and owners do not want to speak about what they're looking for at the negotiating table.
And I do, to a certain extent, appreciate protecting your players and not putting a dollar amount or a value out into the world. And then now players are forced to answer to that, or the court of public opinion starts to nitpick exactly what those numbers are. I do understand that and appreciate that to a certain extent. My thing, what bothered me about Cathy Engelbert's press conference, and it is interesting, Cass, your perspective actually being there. One thing that bothered me, rubbed me the wrong way, is Cathy Engelbert talked about like the backlash that she's been receiving and about how she has kids and they are hearing these things or hearing negative talk and it's hurting them. That doesn't surprise me. And I understand that. That's really hard. Being in positions like we're in, and when you have a public facing job, the court of public opinion has every right to say whatever they want to about you. And we forget often that we have families and they see that, they read that. My mom sees things about social media and it makes her so sad. And that's a sliver of the amount of exposure that I have versus what Cathy Engelbert has. I get it. I understand it. We are people. We have families too. The onus is not on the court of public opinion to be nice to you. It's your responsibility to do your job. It is your responsibility to respond to that in a positive way, to repair those relationships, to be better moving forward. It felt to me in Cathy Engelbert saying that, yes, it's a reminder that we are humans as well, but also that's not our job. It is your job to make those relationships with the players. Don't tell people, hey, stop being mean to me, guys. No. Do your job correctly, and then the court of public opinion won't be forced to have those kind of negative comments about you. So I wanted to see a little bit more responsibility in what Cathy Engelbert was saying.
I have another way of looking at this. Ice, you can go first.
Yeah. My quick comment, like Cathy has also been leadership at Deloitte. You know what it's like to have a public-facing job. This is just the first time in which you work closely with your employees. See, that's the difference, right? Is Deloitte, you're not necessarily touching those that are on the ground, boots working, getting things actually done. You're having conversations with leadership and we sending out memos. Now you are dealing with players and having to have conversations because that is the job that you have. You've been doing it for 6 years. I just think time is up. I think the personal relationship has been damaged and it's been 6 years. The league has experienced astronomical growth. Somebody else is probably more equipped to handle where the league is going next.
Just more context for Cathy, something I've been thinking about. And I'm glad you brought up Deloitte because that's exactly where I'm going. You know,
Great
Cathy
line.
is, we always got each other. Cathy is 60 years old. She was the first female CEO of Deloitte. And at the time, you know, especially knowing older women in my life, my aunt-in-law was a CEO of a big company. They came up at a time when it was very much male run. And so to survive and work in that business, you almost have to kind of hide who you are sometimes as a woman and take on male qualities at the time. 2025, obviously very different than, 2005. And I'm not saying this as an excuse or, as an excuse for the situation she's in now. But when I heard the stuff about her family and just kind of like that reminder and hearing that internally from some people this week of like, hey, like she's a person too, I took it as like, okay, she's finally kind of tapping into that I'm a human too situation that maybe she had always been used to ignoring because she came up in business at a time when it was all men. And if you did that as a woman, for lack of a better term here, you're just kind of screwed. Like you were treated differently. You were treated less than for that. And again, not as an excuse, not saying that she shouldn't be better in this moment, but certainly it's a part of her past that you can't just run away from.
Yeah. And no one deserves to be threatened. No one deserves those type of comments. No one deserves that. You end of the day, you are doing a job. But when you have a public facing job, that is what comes with it. The three of us have experienced that, had conversations about that. The same holds true for Cathy. So we want her to be safe. We want her to be okay. But at the same time, we also just want better. We want better for the league. And honestly, guys, knowing Cathy's work over the last 6 years, you want better for Cathy. Like, I think Cathy could have been better in these moments in terms of what we've seen. But again, the dynamic and relationships have been tarnished. So I think she's trying to put her best foot forward. I just honestly think time has run its course.
In terms of public facing or in terms of like what she's done for the league?
Well, I know that.
That's two very important conversations.
100%. In terms of what she's done for the league, she has done a good job. I remember years ago talking about flights and players still find commercial flights. I could bump into Copper on the way to, finals in Chicago because they were taking regular flights. Like, this was a big deal. It's so funny now how we talk about this league because just 2-3 years ago, it looked drastically different. Like, you would have thought we went from the 1970s to 2025 in 2 years. And so happy for that growth. So I think what she did in those moments was good. I think that the league couldn't have been prepared for the growth that was coming. And so that is how I defend her. If I'm defending Cathy, that's all I could say is I don't think anyone could have been prepared to handle the amount of growth that came with the league. But on the other side of it, you've now had 2 years to settle in, to sit down, to build moving forward. And if these relationships are tarnished at this point, what can you do?
I kind of view it as an impasse, kind of like in a dating history. Sometimes you have to date that guy. A lot of dating. My feels. Sometimes you have to date someone to remind you who you are.
Have you guys been listening to Taylor Swift
No,
this
I'm
week?
just
Like,
saying
what is
that's the
happening?
married people. It's the married people. I'm cracking.
I'm in a very happy and healthy
You're
relationship.
dating reference.
Okay. Just watching a lot of reality TV. But like sometimes you need to date someone to remind you that you're that girl. Like sometimes you have to date somebody to get your, you have to renew your trust in people. But then that person's not your person. Like you grow with them as a person to a certain extent, and then that gets you to your ultimate person, reminds you who you are. Maybe that's what Cathy Engelbert is for the league. Like maybe the league needed Cathy to get to this point, but now we need to go our separate ways because we've grown and we can't grow together anymore. And I need to break up with you to ultimately find my happily ever after. Like, we're at an impasse with Cathy Engelbert. Like, I think it's fair enough to say the league couldn't have experienced growth to this point without her, but can't experience any more with her.
Wise words from a woman with the ring. That's all
Thank
I
you.
gotta
Get my point, though, you know?
You had a
We
great
do.
one.
We do, yeah. Yeah, it was there. You nailed it.
Thanks, guys. I blame Taylor.
Any hoodle.
Anybody have any final thoughts?
No, honestly,
Before
that
we
was
wrap
great.
this thing
Can
up?
I give a shout out? Can I do a final thought shout out?
Yes, please.
I would like to shout out all the guards that made all defensive team for the WNBA is what I'd like to shout out. A Gabby Williams, who led the league in steals, first team all defense. A Veronica Burton, who had her first time selection all defense on the second team. A guard who gets after it. Also, Ryan Howard, who for a long time we thought only cared about shooting the basketball and scoring because she's prolific at that, but certainly showed us this year that she cared to grow in her game and become mature and a mature defender as well. She was on second team. Lastly, not a guard, but I got to show some love to my girl, Leah Boston, also a first time selection for her in her career. And we're going to see more from her. AB, I believe in the next 3 years will be an MVP. That's my final thought.
Love.
Yeah. Oh, great minds. Great minds.
I told someone that last week in Indiana. I was like, future MVP. For sure.
Easy. I give it 3 years. I think she will be there in 3 years. She will be the Nicole
writing it down
of this league. Writing it down. Stay, book it. Send me the 10% when it happens.
Cut this, save it, put it in the kitty for whenever you guys are right.
Yes. And we'll
Sooner
clip
rather
the one
than
before
later.
for your wedding. I'll bring that personally.
Yes, thank you very much. Yeah,
Absolutely.
I'm sure my fiance Dylan will absolutely appreciate all of that. Okay, that is going to do it for us today. Just a look ahead to the rest of the series. We have Game 4 coming up on Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern tip. Game 5 on Sunday at 3 p.m. All right, Game 4, official prediction. Who takes it? Cass, we'll start with you.
I'll just give it to the Aces. Sure. Do I have solid reasoning? No.
You don't really need to.
The ace is enough as reasoning.
3-0 is the reasoning. I think it sounds pretty solid to me. Yeah, I'm actually going to go Phoenix. Something in my spirit is telling me that they will at least win one game in this finals. I would love to see DeWanna Bonner win one. I would love to see Alyssa Thomas at least win in this finals. To me, it's just too many fierce competitors to get swept. Kahleah Copper, same thing. So I hope Satou is healthy. But I have the Aces winning in 5, but I have Phoenix getting this last one at home.
See, I thought Phoenix was going to get one at home as well, but I said it has to be Game 3. It's going to be Game 3. They have to ride that momentum of winning at home, but losing in that fashion right at the buzzer to Asia Wilson after a 17-point deficit, and then Satou Sabally goes down. It's just, it just feels like all of the wind that the Mercury had in their sails is gone. So I thought that it was going to be, the Aces, but in 5 or 6. I think the Aces sweep. I really do. And I hate that for this gritty Mercury team that always finds a way, but I just don't think that they find a way. So I think the Aces take it in 4. I would love to see a 7-game series. That's not what we're getting this time around.
Yeah, next year.
Yeah, there's always next year. Also, before we go, let me just say, if there is a Game 5, why are we doing a potentially, championship Sunday in the middle of NFL games? Like, I don't know if that's a W thing. I don't know if that's an ESPN thing. I don't know if that's a network thing. Whatever it is, be better, do better to hide a potential championship game in the middle of the NFL. Look, anybody that goes against the NFL is going to lose. College football, Major League Baseball, National Hockey League, whatever it is, Dancing with the Stars. If you go up against the NFL, you will lose. And it is not fair to this league and to this teams to be buried right in the middle of an NFL window. Everybody be better. I digress. If we need a game 6 and a game 7, those of course will all come next week, and we will have a full breakdown of all of the action in the WNBA finals. Will we have a championship to react to? We shall see, but we will be back right here on Hoops 360. She's Cassandra Negley. That is Ice Young. I am Caroline Fenton. You can find us on your preferred podcast platform. You can always find us and interact with us on the Yahoo Sports YouTube page as well. We'll see you soon.